students. They want me to answer all these questions. They prepare a questionnaire. They make three categories. The first category is subject-based questions. The second one is random questions, and the third one is for madam and sir for madam. This madam would be my wife and sir is me. Alright, they prepare 50 questions and this will take a long time, and which is why I may not be able to finish all these uh, questions in one video, and I may need to make a 2 or 3 video more. So let me start with the first category question, which is prepared by my student. Okay, the first question is, what inspired you to become an economics teacher? Alright, this would be, I was always fascinated by how economics or economy shape people's life, from the price of bread in the market to the government policies that influence entire nations. And teaching allows me to express this fascination, inspire curiosity, and help students to see that economics is not just theory, it is applicable for real life. And this inspired me to become an economics teacher. Okay, the second question is, what skills should students develop if they want to pursue economics in higher studies or careers? Okay, the skills that the students should develop would be like, firstly, thinking is required in order to understand economics well, and also analytical ability is also important, and curiosity. And these three skills, if you possess these three skills, I think they are enough to understand, to pursue economics in your future, in higher studies. Okay, and question number 3 is, if you were not an economics teacher, what would you be? I think if I were not an economics teacher, I would be a political science teacher, because I'm interested in politics. I love to teach, I love to read about politics, I love to listen about politics. So if I were not an economics teacher, I would be a political science teacher. The fourth one, who is your favorite economist and why? Alright, there are lots of economists whom I like about them, but one of my favorite economists would be J.M. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes. He is not just a theorist, okay, but he is a practical thinker, because you may have learned about his view on especially the classical theories. He was the one who proved the classical theories wrong, and he was the one who corrected it and make it all the theories applicable to the real world, and which is why I like Jenkins the best and the most. Alright, question number 5. Which country's economy do you find most interesting and what makes it stand out? I think India. We are a developing country, you all know that, but then it's no doubt that India's economy is interesting because of its diversity, because of its different challenges, and because of its rapid growing ability. India's economy is growing these days, and we are one of the fastest growing economy in the world. And when we study about this economy, it is very interesting because India's economy is blended with modern industries and as well as traditional industries. and traditional practices are still available in somewhere in the corner of India, and that contrast teaches us a lot, and which is not available in all the countries, and that is why I find India's economy most interesting of all the economies in the world. Alright, question number 6. What is the funniest or most unusual question a student has ever asked you about economics? Once a student asked me that, "Sir, why don't we print more money in order to make everyone rich?" So that was one of the funniest questions that I have received from the students, because he has no idea about inflation, and that is the time that I find it important to explain how inflation affects our economy. Right, question number 7. What's the most rewarding part of teaching economics? Alright, the most rewarding part is that most of the economics theories that you have learned are applicable and directly connect to your daily life, and why so many prices of the commodities rise up, and how government budgets affect the prices and the government and the people and stuff like that. To the students, I find it rewarding. Okay. Is there an economic theory you personally disagree with? Why? Okay. That would be one of the classical theories, J.B. Say's law. Supply creates its own demand, which is not applicable in real life. According to J.B. Say's, he was so much into supply. If producers are supplying more, the producers doesn't have to worry about that supply. Automatically there will be a demand for that supply, so there will be equilibrium between supply and demand. Always equilibrium would be achieved. That was what he believed through his laws, and I don't agree with that, and most, like the modern economists, even doesn't agree with his postulation. Alright, question number 9. If you had to describe your teaching style in one word, what would it be? I think it would be interactive, because when I deliver a lecture inside the classroom, I find it boring when I talk about the concept and when I explain by myself without any student participating. So when the students are participating, I find it more interesting, and I always hope that the students are contributing with their ideas and ask me questions, and I really want to have that type of interactive and discussing different topics in my class. So going to define my teaching style, I should say interactive. Okay. And how do you handle students who struggle to understand economics? There are lots who don't understand economics well. Okay, inside my class, in class 11, in class 12 also, in all the sections, I should say, most of the students doesn't understand when I explain any concept. At that time, I used to give a lots of examples. I break down the topics and think about some examples to explain the topic that I am discussing inside the class. So this helped the students a lot, I think, because when I just explain whatever is written in the textbook, they find it really hard to understand. But when I give examples like a present example, present context example, they find it easier to understand the concept. So that is how I handle the students with difficulties in economics, with having difficulties or struggling in economics. Okay, question number 11. What's the most rewarding moment you have had with your students so far? The most rewarding moment that I have had with my students is that some of the students reach me out, and then they told me that some of my ex-students, they told me that they have economics as their major in BA, and that is the most rewarding moments that I have had, I think, so far, right? Because of me, okay? A major economics. Alright, question number 12. Can you share a time when a student taught you something new or surprising? Teachers' Day this year. On that day, my students surprising me with the gifts and also with a note written on the whiteboard, and they are surprising me with a short drama which I wasn't believing that they were fighting. And when I went there thinking that they were fighting, they surprised me with a bouquet, a very beautiful bouquet. And I have learned that even though I was hard on them sometimes, and they love me for who I am, so that teaches me to love them who they are and to guide them throughout their career if they are willing. So that is the thing that I have learned from them, and that was the most surprising act I have encountered and experienced in my life. Okay, question number 13. How would you describe your relationship with your colleagues in the school? I would just describe my relationship with my colleagues in St.Mary as supportive and as well as collaborative. We help each other when we need help, alright? And not only helping, but we live together as a family. So we all the time create the best environment, even in the staff room and even outside the staff room as well. So I would describe my relationship as supportive and as well as collaborative to one another. Okay, and question number 14. What changes would you like to see in the school to make it even better for students and teachers? Especially in context to economics, we never go for like a visit, or we never organize any seminars or a workshop in context to economics. I wish if we can organize any workshop, any interactive seminars, and a small visit or a short visit to any financial institutions that we have had in the town. This could include any commercial banks like SBI. Why don't we approach these SBI brands, PNB brands, and see and learn something new from them, because we have learned financial institution, financial markets, money and banking, and in our class 12 subject in one whole unit. I think if we can organize all those visits, this will benefit the students and as well as the teachers. Okay, the last question is, what advice would you give to students who are just beginning to study economics? Alright, the advice that I would like to give to students who are just beginning to study economics is that please be curious inside the class and also ask questions. Have the guts to ask questions. Be very inquisitive person, no problem. Alright, and don't just memorize the definitions or the concepts that you have in your subject. Try to understand its concept, try to understand its definitions, and this will help you a lot in understanding the concept of economics. And this would be my advice to all the students. Raise questions inside the class if you have doubts, and then let me know. Alright, and this would be my advice, and thank you so very much for asking me all these questions. I don't know whether I answer it correctly, or I may not reach your expectation, but since I don't have time to prepare, I'm just answering here without any preparation. Okay, whatever comes in my mind here, I'm just expressing through this video, because you have spared your time drafting these questions, and I feel like if I'm a waste of time for you, and I don't want to make everything in vain, and which is why, since you want me to answer all these questions, I am trying my level best to answer all these questions. Okay, if I don't reach your expectation, I apologize for that. Okay, thank you all very much. See you next time.